So good morning, Alicia. It's so wonderful. I'm getting used to my Wednesday check-ins. I chat to my ladies and I say my Wednesdays with Alicia are just so fabulous to start my day off, just with such beautiful motivation and inspiration. So thank you for joining again. It's lovely to have you here.
Of course, my pleasure. And yes, it is always amazing to check in and just to remember all of the progress that I've made since I've started working with you and pranic healing, and just all these magical moments. It's just truly enhanced my life in every way. But so I guess today we're talking about the month of July, and this is leading into the third month of working with pranic healing. And it's a really, really special month for me because after 2 months of treatment and also having pranic healing happen simultaneously and so much progress occurring, I had become so immensely interested in wanting to learn more about, like, what is pranic healing? Like, what is this energy healing system that has literally changed my life? And I had signed up for a pranic healing level 1 course in July, not knowing if I could even go, because there were a lot of obstacles in the way. And one of which was, I thought there was a very good chance I was going to have a neck surgery. And after getting a second and a third opinion from neurosurgeons, all of them had concluded that, no, you should just start with the targeted radiation on your neck, and it should be fine for you to travel to Florida. And I was like elated. And yes, I was really happy because I also got to see my family, because I hadn't seen them in so long because of Corona, and my children hadn't been to Florida to see their cousins and our other relatives. But I was like secretly really like just so thrilled that I got to go and see you and your team in person and to participate in this course.
And we were so excited. Like, when you told us we were coming, we were like, seriously, you're coming to Tampa, Florida? And it was like divine timing that when you came, we had this class set up. And
yes,
there was even that concern where I was like, are you going to be able to get through the entire class? And I mean, it was just amazing.
I felt the same way. It felt miraculous because, if I remember correctly, I had my second and last radiation treatment 3 days before I got on an international flight to go to Tampa. And I had, some side effects. They weren't as severe as the first time around. And I do attribute that to pranic healing. But yeah, I was like, no, nothing is going to stop me from attending this course. And I so vividly remember before the course, we had scheduled an in-person healing session. And I'd never had one in person because every single session was done via Zoom, or not even Zoom. I would just like lay down on my sofa at 3 p.m. and, I just knew that something was happening. So this was like really exciting. And I just remember, pulling up and walking up, and it's a beautiful building. And then walking through the door, it just was this like beautiful Zen sanctuary. And you were standing there with your team, and it was just like, it was just like flooded with so much love. I just felt so much gratitude, and I just felt so blessed that I got to actually hug each and every one of you after everything that I had experienced the past 2 months, and knowing that I was in this amazing space mentally and physically because of you and pranic healing. Like, it's I just know from the bottom of my heart that I would not have been in such an optimistic, excited, like full of energy. There's no way I could have been in that place if I had just been doing the conventional treatment that has been provided to me. There's just no way. I mean, I literally, a stage 4 cancer patient, managed to like fly internationally to Tampa, Florida from Sweden, and tons of energy and so happy, and just had radiation, and there was some side effects, but it just didn't matter. I overcame every obstacle. And I remember hugging you and the other ladies, and it was just such a, like, it just felt like at that moment, like I could just do anything, that I somehow managed to like get to you and to hug all of you. And then that in-person session in your healing room was so magical and beautiful. And not to say that doing a Zoom session is less than, they're the same but different.
That space is so blessed, and so high vibration. There is something special there. I would agree completely.
Yeah, and it was like the whole space feels that way. I felt, it was just incredible. And and it was just lovely. And then afterwards we chatted, we had tea, and it was just so beautiful connecting with like-minded souls. And I know I always say this, but when you have cancer, it's so hard for people that you're friends with or your loved ones, for them to get past this fear. You like see it in their eyes, and
I think it's that fear of how to relate to you now. They see you through a different set of lenses.
Absolutely. And that set of lens doesn't exist with you or your team. I am just Alicia. You are speaking to my soul, and I am speaking to your souls. And I don't even feel like I'm sick when I'm with all of you, or when I am in a healing session, or when I was taking the level 1 course. Like, I was just Alicia. I was not sick Alicia.
Mm-hmm. And it was quite amazing, because it was almost like you had such a perfect run up to the workshop, because there was so much faith in pranic healing already, that when it came to learning the techniques, you just went with it. It was so easy, it was so effortless. You just got it on such a beautiful level, because the faith was there. You'd already seen the impact that it had in your life already. And it really took your sessions to another level, now that you had the understanding of like how pranic healing works and how you've integrated it into your life. That is just incredible. I often say the best people to work on are pranic healers, because they understand what we're trying to do. And I really feel like it gave you that big nudge forwards on your journey with pranic healing.
Absolutely. And I remember, that course. It was a 2-day course, and they were both long days, and maybe even I was a bit nervous. Oh, can I handle this? Because now that I'm sort of dealing with this disease, I do have this sort of healing protocol with a very specific diet and things that I do throughout the day. But I was able to, set that aside and have these long days. And like the whole time, though, it wasn't even, I can't explain. It was like being like in university, taking your favorite course, and you were like, oh my God, I love this class. I love the content. I love the instructor. And I had my notebook, and I just was so thrilled to be there. It never even entered my mind, like, oh, well, I'm missing my carrot juice or celery juice right now. It just didn't matter, because this was my focal point.
I think you were being fed. That's the thing about
and I was being fed, and there was a delicious array of vegetables and fresh fruit in the kitchen.
I'm not even talking about the food. I'm saying spiritually fed.
Yes, thank you. I was like taking it literally, but yes, like just the energy in the room. And then that's probably why it just like all I could focus on was the lesson and learning
And
the
that's the thing,
technique.
when we do those classes, a lot of people like to review because they are being spiritually fed. That energy is just going into their system. And it's one of the most favorite things when I'm teaching the classes is we always invoke for our teacher. And his energy is so strong through those workshops that people leave and they feel elated and they're mentally stimulated and inspired, but physically, you know, I've had people with some fairly chronic health issues that take the class and they leave and they're like, I haven't felt this good in ages. And a lot of it is just from literally being in the class and being in that energy, and that meditation workshop space is just such a beautiful, uplifting space anyway. But you were being fed that energy and you were so receptive. And I mean,
and you're so right. And I guess I wasn't even like thinking to articulate myself, you know, in the right way, because yes, I was energetically fed because, and I've told you this before, after that course and after leaving, it was like I had this intuitive knowing, like, okay, you know, it was almost like I had been like bumped up to a different frequency, and I knew returning back to Sweden, it was going to be a new chapter in my life, because I had been self-isolating myself and, you know, really trying to deal with this disease. But it's like, no, I feel amazing. I need to start re-entering normal life again. I have amazing energy. I feel great. And there's nothing stopping me from, you know, immersing myself into all of like the normal day-to-day activities. And that's like, that's what I was saying earlier, like this course, like it wasn't just learning this healing technique, and which, you know, I'm still continuing my education because I in November, I'll be taking the level 2 course. But it was like, it shifted me in the most amazing way possible, where mentally, I just like, I have such like this like knowing, or this like optimism for my future. And in even, you know, there are moments, because, you know, it's normal to have moments where you get triggered, or you encounter someone that really has a strong negative energy field and you get triggered. And, you know, I now have tools to undo that. And if I'm struggling, then, you know, you and Pranic Healing help me get through it. Like, let's remember, you can do this, and that. But like,
it's tools for life. You know, when you look at, you know, one of the messages of the teacher was to, one of the goals was to have one pranic healer per family. And the more I see people getting involved in pranic healing, the more I see how important that goal was. Such a simple goal, but so important, because as you said, none of us are saints yet. We still get triggered. We're still, you know, working through our stuff, but to be able to look at it consciously and have tools that if you are feeling triggered, you have the tools to start removing that and rebalancing and regaining composure and centering yourself. That is such a valuable tool for relationships, just from a relationship point of view. And I remembered how excited you were after the class to go home and see your husband. It was like a little spark. It just ignited. I remember that very clearly. How just
yes, I was excited to see my husband, and I was excited to go home.
Yeah, and that was a big shift for you. I remember that.
It's a huge shift, because I had convinced myself that, you know, Sweden was not my home. I did not belong there. I did not fit in. And it was like the first time where I was like, no, I looked at living in Sweden in a very different way. And I was really excited to go home. And when I did go home, it was a completely different experience from when I left Sweden to go to Florida. And even my husband and I discussed how there was such a major shift. Something changed And it was like the beginning of, it was like a beautiful flower that was like slowly blossoming into a fully like just bloomed magnificent flower. We saw this like slow transition, and like now today, like I can't even believe, and it is now October, how incredible our family dynamic is.
Yeah.
And you know, you can't really, I don't think anyone can, maybe you can explain it, but I can't. But all I know is that there's no way that that could have happened or occurred if I had not found pranic healing. I would still be in the same space, and who knows, I might actually be living in the States, trying to heal my disease with my family in Florida. I may have left my husband. It
brings me back to a statement where you cannot control what's going on around you, but you can control your response to it. And it's again, yes, you know, your situation at home didn't change. That's always been the same, but your yes, perception of it and how you react to it and how you almost look at it with a different lens, a different perspective, a different viewpoint. And suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed to live in this space. And I mean, I hear you describing your garden and your fruit trees and everything that's around you. And I'm like, this just sounds like paradise. And you needed that shift in perception and a different viewpoint. And I think a lot of the gratitude and forgiveness work came in with helping you see that. But when you fully embrace that, it was almost like everything just came into bloom. I remembered you coming back, and then suddenly all your fruit trees were producing copious amounts of fruit. And yes, it was so symbolic in a level that yes, you know, you'd come back, and it's probably been like that for years, but yes, you appreciated it and saw it in such a different way.
Precisely. It was like, yes, I began to see everything in a different lens. Like, it's so true. And but it's not easy. It's not easy on your own to shift that.
When you're in that bubble of stuff, you literally can't see through it. And one of my clients said it was so beautiful. When people have a session, the analogy that I gave was, imagine driving in your car and you've got your windshield covered with bugs and mud, and you literally, you don't have a clear view of the world outside. And in pranic healing, specifically with the psychotherapy, we actually clear that windshield, and suddenly your whole viewpoint changes, and nothing on the outside changed. It was all internal changes that happened. And suddenly you realize there's this beautiful world outside, but when you're in it and you can't see it, reality is so different. And how many of us are walking around with this anger and this fear and this worry and disease and relationship stuff and COVID stuff, and just all these thought forms are sitting in our space. And yes, when you clear that and you look through that with a clear lens, suddenly the whole world is completely different. And what a beautiful space to be, right?
I am so blessed. I mean, honestly, I have, like, in the last 48 hours been like, oh my God, I'm having so much fun, and like not really doing anything. But my husband's like, whoa, like dancing in the kitchen, washing dishes. And, you know, a year ago I would be like, oh, I gotta wash the dishes. But that's probably a bad example. But I love.
It's not a bad example, because when you can just enjoy the simple things in life, like I can stand and I can wash the dishes and I'm happy and I'm not in pain and I'm not hobbled over a chair because I can't walk. Yes. That's where you've come from. You do take joy in the mundane, because that's just so normal right now.
Yeah, well, and even add on to that, you know, my daughter was playing music and I was dancing and doing dishes and having fun. And it felt like life was 100% normal. So yes, and thank you for that beautiful example of the windshield. I love that. That's
such a good way.
What happened to me.
Yeah, because we've got all these filters and all these blocks, and you know, specifically, even when you look at relationships, if you've got betrayal and anger and fear and worry and all of the stuff sitting in your energy body, how can anybody see the true you? And how are you able to see the core of who that person is? It's all muddied up in between. And that really is the essence of the relationship healing part of pranic healing. It's just remove all the stuff so that the true core essence of who you're interacting with comes through. It's so simple.
It's so beautiful. Like, I mean, the way you describe it, it's so true. I mean, and that has happened to me.
Yeah.
And I am so blessed. And yeah. And you had said, and I think our last interview, something to the degree of like how, you know, cancer saved my life, because, you know, if I had not gotten cancer, my sister-in-law would not have referred you to me or introduced me to pranic healing. And I can say with 100% certainty, my life has never been better.
Yeah. And I mean, that is it in a nutshell. I mean, when you just look from where you were to where you are now, this stuff is processing so quickly and so beautifully, and your life has just become so amazing. It's just, it's so inspiring for so many. And I think that is really the key of why I wanted to share your story, is to give other people hope, because I think that was the big thing for you, was you were in such a dark place, you were in pain, you'd had this awful diagnosis, just everything was dark and heavy. And I even remember our first like interview together when we would, it was late there, but just everything felt dark and felt heavy. And suddenly now it just feels light and easy and happy. Like even just that whole energy has shifted. And I think that's so important for people to know, that there are always options and there is hope, and just having a team to support you. I think that is just so vital to this program with working in a healing pod and with its success, because we're getting so much success with so many different people with many, many different conditions. But just having that team rallying behind you on the good days and on the bad days, and to just be able to be yourself on the bad days, and just to say, I'm having such a bad day, and to be able to have a session and have that lifted is invaluable. I mean, it's just such a perfect system. And as we always say, you know, pranic healing is a complementary therapy. It's not there to replace any of the other stuff you're doing. But when you can take your traditional Western medicine and combine it with such a comprehensive complementary system, that's where the two, you're getting the best of both. And that's where I really feel like the good healing comes in, because you're doing the inner work. The inner work is the stuff that you need to do to actually get to the root cause of, why have I got this in my system? And you very quickly identified, like, I've been harboring so much unforgiveness and anger and resentment, and just all the stuff was sitting in your system. Another analogy like I give in the workshops is, you know, you were a healthy little fish in a really dirty fish tank of all these different thought forms. Eventually that little fish is going to get sick, and it's the same energetically, right? You know, if you're sitting in a sea of toxic emotions, eventually the physical body is going to get sick. And to be able to remove that and create this healthy space around you in your aura and your chakras, the physical body will eventually match that. And that is just so profound with the system. And we were really blessed with the beautiful system with Master Cho and what he did with pranic healing, because he's made it accessible to everybody. Anybody can learn pranic healing. And that's what I love. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing it, because when I speak to people like you, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how does everybody not want to be doing this, right?
No, and you, I mean, you must continue with this beautiful work, because, you know, you've said it so beautifully, like everyone should be practicing pranic healing as a complementary modality to conventional Western medicine. Because I there's no way I would be where I am today in my like healing journey if it weren't for pranic healing. And
I know even when you speak with doctors, the clients that are very optimistic and positive and have a healthy view of the future are the ones that are generally going to be successful. And
Yes.
that is such a key factor, because when you're in that doom and gloom, and it's hard to get out of that and imagine your future ahead of you.
Yes.
Oh, Alicia, this was fabulous. Thank you for sharing.
No, thank you. I love listening to you. Your insights are always, they mean the world to me. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So until next week, that is just amazing. Thank you.